Buddy Rice, Honda-powered Firestone shot, wins the Indianapolis 500 for Bobby Rahal and Dave Letterman. His first win in his IRL career. There couldn't be a better moment. The celebration goes to the Rahal Letterman team. They've done it. They've won the Indy 500.
That was back in 2004 when our next guest of the program took the swig of milk and did so kind of underneath the Tower Terrace in one of the Formula One garages. It was one of the more bizarre victory lanes, but I'm sure he probably in the moment did not care. He joins us now on the program, Buddy Rice from Arizona, where I am sure things are sunnier than they were that day in Indianapolis. Buddy, how are you?
I'm doing great. They are nice and sunny here.
But are you in Phoenix? What part of Arizona do you call home?
Actually, I'm just a little bit further outside right now in Fountain Hills.
Okay. And so, obviously, you grew up in the Phoenix area. When you hear back to that call from 2004, I want to go back to that first and foremost. Overwhelmingly, and look, you had obviously a great car that day. I mean, you were the pole sitter. You fell back. You worked your way back up in that race itself. But what are the things that you most recall from that 04 Indy 500?
I would say two things. One is obviously the rain, because obviously we started late. We got going, we stopped, we got going, and then obviously it stopped early. But, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things. And I think the second is when we had our little hiccup in the pits, and, you know, Scott Remke and those guys all, like, had a game plan of what we were going to go do. No one panicked, and we all just came back through, did what we were supposed to do, and we're able to drive back through with everything, with the weather coming.
Okay, I hate to say this, buddy. You know how it is in Indy, like, right? When the forecast isn't great, we kind of don't talk about it. You know, we pretend it's not there, but it is. So I am curious from your experience and standpoint, what did it do psychologically as a driver to have a race that was fractured like that and to know that you're constantly chasing it and wondering when it's going to happen, if you will?
I guess I would say for me, it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, obviously you get into your routine and your game plan, but I think with all the different types of racing and training and everything I've done, and I'm not super regimented on my routine, that it wasn't that big of a deal. Obviously, you always got to be prepared and stay ready. But I think that was like the biggest thing. It really wasn't, I don't think it was a big thing. I mean, obviously the waiting, I think in between the start and then we stopped and then waiting for it to get going in was some odd. You said, you know, keep yourself occupied and try to just stay in the moment and be ready. But I think that wasn't that really that big of a deal for me.
From a driving standpoint, and for you, it was probably, you know, somewhat irrelevant because, like I said, I think, you know, clearly you had the fastest car in the field. I mean, we know that, right? And it was a great car, and you drove it masterfully in that race. But when you have a race going into it where you know it may not go 200 laps, how do you work the information that the team is getting in terms of trying to take the gamble on, in other words, does it change like when you stop, when you pit, what your sequences are, how long your stints are? How much does an inconsistent forecast alter the strategy going into the race? How much thought is put into that?
Well, again, I think like a lot of people, I left it up to the strategist, Todd Poland, my engineers. Scott Remke was also the lead strategist on that deal. Those guys had to deal with it. And, I mean, it's like a lot of your guys are back there. Like, it doesn't look like there's going to be anything, and then all of a sudden a cell pops up. And that's really what happened late in the race. Yeah, we'd had rain on and off all day or whatever had been around us, but there wasn't anything. And then I don't know exactly at what point, but they obviously got notification because they're watching. And all those teams now, I mean, they got so much technology information. They can see it all coming at, you know, at live time. But once it popped up, then they had to start changing their strategy because they knew that cell was coming and we weren't going to make it to the end. We knew it was late in the day, so it wasn't going to we weren't going to stop it and fire up and go again. So, you know, that kind of changed everything. And I think it was Bruno Junqueira and the guys at Haas, you know, Newman Haas, they tried to stretch it to make it to the rain, and that didn't happen. But I mean, still, we only were going to have another stop or so to go, and it was going to be over anyway. So I think I don't think it changed that much, but it made it exciting. But once those guys saw that coming, I think they had to adjust to see what they needed to do, and they were the ones timing it all out. I just kept doing what I was doing in the seat, just worried about what I can control.
Buddy Rice is my guest. He is the 2004 Indy 500 champion. Buddy, I'm going to go back to, and you would not remember this, but I recall when you won the race, I was working at Channel 6 at the time, and I went back into the media center well after the race. It was, it was kind of crazy because, like, the skies were green and it was pouring, and Tom Blattler, who was your PR guy, was bringing you up into the media center to do the press conference or whatnot. And I bumped into you guys, I remember saying to you, man, like, your life has changed now because you just won the Indy 500. And you said to me, I'll never forget this, you said, nah, I'm just a different dude, man. Like, I don't know that my life's probably going to be pretty much the same. I'm just a different dude. And I think that has held true. You just seem to be one that you just kind of had this easygoing nature about you, right? Did the Indy 500, in fact, now, 22 years later when you look back on it, how is your life, if at all, different from winning the Indy 500?
I mean, I'm sure there's been perks and things that have happened, but I still do and approach everything the same way. I haven't changed anything. So for me, I don't try to let that change. I just try to be myself and just keep doing what I do. So that's just kind of how I see it. I mean, it's super awesome, and I really appreciate it. And it was a great day, and a lot of hard work went into everybody there with Ray Hall and Pioneer and Argent and Honda and Firestone and everybody there. But on the grand scale of things, no, I don't think. I mean, sometimes I guess certain people look at it differently, but I keep going about it the same way as I always have.
Well, every 500 winner got that blue sport coat. It's kind of like the IMS's, Roger Penske came up with this. It's kind of like the Masters green jacket. You get the blue jacket, and they do the photos and everything else. And every photo I've ever seen of you, you're wearing a flat brim hat and like skater shoes. How often do you actually wear the blue sport coat?
It's only for the track. So I only did it the one time, the only time I was there. Those guys, you showed up for the very first one, and that's the only time I've worn it. Okay.
Now, is it hang? Do you know exactly where it's hanging? Is it one of those things where you're like, oh gosh, I got to find it? I mean, you don't again, you're not a sport coat guy, right?
No, I'm not a sport coat guy.
So do you know where the sport coat is?
Yeah, it sits at the Speedway. They're
at the Speedway. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you guys were giving it, and then you just had to bring it back. Okay, my apologies.
Oh, no. They keep them all there for us. So if you show up, you can go get it or whatever. I've been there. But I only work for the one photo, and that's it.
Okay, sorry. I thought for some reason I thought you guys were given that. The other day when I reached out to you and was like, hey, do you want to come on the show? And I did not realize this. My apologies. I thought it was kind of fascinating. You're like, yeah, man, I'm flying right now over to Europe. I was thinking you were already there. What was it in terms of Buddy Rice's life today and your responsibilities that had you over in Europe?
One of the kids I work with was running over in the Nürburgring in a Carrera Cup car. I got 5 kids I work with managing their racing careers, and then I do we have a 4-car team in Lamborghini Super Trofeo with 47 Motorsports. I work for those guys as well, and I just do a little bit of consulting on the side or whatever with different race teams.
Do you ever see?
I like working with kids and training with them.
Do you ever see in young drivers something that kind of makes you smirk or smile because you see a little bit of younger Buddy Rice in it? You know what I mean? And now maybe you have a greater appreciation for those that were coaching or mentoring you?
Yeah, for sure. I got a couple of them that have done that. And then the year I ran Ferrucci over at Dryan and Reinfeld, we got a little bit of that, which was pretty awesome. I thought it was funny. So, yeah, you see some of those flares and stuff, and I think it's cool.
How much do you follow the race today? How much do you follow the IndyCar series in general? But just like, for example, this month of May in terms of the practice or qualifying, or are you too busy to keep an eye on it?
I check some of it out. I keep an eye on it, especially for the month of May, and like for certain some of the road course races that I think are cool. St. Pete, Long Beach, stuff like that. It just kind of depends. Obviously, I spend a lot of time right now over in the IMSA paddock with that stuff, but it just depends on where they're at and what's going on. I watched, I would say, most of qualifying, I'd say. And I'll end up watching the race just to see what happens and see how it plays out.
Who impressed you in qualifying? I mean, obviously, Pallou's your pole sitter, right? And we know how good Palou is. But is there a driver that you watched that you kind of raised an eyebrow and thought, this guy looks awfully comfortable on that track?
I don't know if anybody's like super comfortable right now with the way the weather was and, the way things were happening with the cars and stuff on that. Obviously, I thought Felix was going to be on the pole, but as comfortable as he looked at his first 2 runs, and obviously there was that missed it just by a little bit there or whatever. And, the other thing that's interesting is how different the runs were, and guys were just saying how, like, sometimes the car would take off, sometimes it wouldn't to accelerate, and also how different everybody was on how they used the hybrid. I was kind of shocked by that, but I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting race. I think it's going to be very interesting with everything, the deployment and the way you use stuff and strategy and stuff. So we'll see what happens.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, there's parts for sure I miss, but there's other stuff. There's other parts that I don't miss. So it's it just kind of depends.
Well, you ran 6 Indy 500s, Buddy Rice, winning in 2004. That track in general, I've asked several drivers this, and it sounds ridiculous because they are all 9 degrees and 12 minutes. The dimensions are technically the same in that track for every turn. It is, I know it's an oval, but it's kind of a rectangle. For you personally, for Buddy Rice, which turn of the 4 is the hardest?
That's probably a good question. It's going to either be 1 or 3. And it depends on how you look at it, because 3, 1, just because you go into it so fast all the time, it's always protected. So you usually you have a lot of speed going in. But the thing is with 3, with it being so exposed to the weather and having more wind is like a bigger issue back there. It just kind of depends. But normally 1's like the trickiest part. If you can get your car really comfortable in 1, that'll normally correlate to 3, and then 2 and 4 the next 2 in order. But I've obviously heard here in the last few years that some stuff's changed, or at least the way guys look at stuff is a little bit different, and there's a lot of different reasons for that, or a lot of variables that cause that. But I would say, for me, when we always went there, is getting through 1 and then 3.
What I find, and I just can't grasp, Buddy Rice, my guess, is seemingly you have to constantly be doing things in the car, whether you are, and I don't know that people realize that, you're processing, you're changing your weight jackers, you're anticipating. It may be a completely different feel in a corner than it was even 1 lap prior because of the wind or whatever it may be. Were there ever periods in a race where you're just kind of in chill zone and you're just kind of in a mode or in, I hate to say relaxed, but you get what I'm saying, in a rhythm? Or is it constant mental balance and work? A little bit of both. I think there's some places we've been to where you can relax a little bit more, but that's usually because it's a fuel race, right? If it turns into a fuel strategy race, then things are completely different. Like we've had those at, let's say, like at Michigan and maybe at a Chicago or a Fontana, something like that. But there's, even the road courses, all that stuff that you constantly got to stay up on top of the car, because it is changing. The fuel load's changing, tire degradation's changing, like all that keeps changing. So you got to kind of keep up on it. And, I think these guys inside the cars have a little bit more adjustability at times, and sometimes I think they're like a little bit more stuck in a box. So it's, I don't know all the stuff they can do, but it kind of depends. But the more you're on top of it, and the more you stay on top of it, I think just the better you can keep your car more consistent. But like I said, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, especially in the qualifying right now with all the hybrid and everything those guys have going on. There's a lot happening there, especially at that speed, and you're trying to do it the last minute. Couple of last-minute things here, Buddy, that I'm curious about in the life of Buddy Rice, right? Because I've always, again, you were just a different dude when you were here, in a good way, not a bad way, right? Number one, last time you wore a flat-brimmed hat, I remember one time you saw somebody that had a curvature in the bill of their hat, and I think you actually wanted to have them persecuted for it. Last time that you wore a flat-brimmed hat was when?
Today. All the time. I've never not worn one.
Okay. Last time you wore a hat with a curvature in the bill.
Oh, God. I probably was a little kid. Like, you're talking like grade school, maybe.
Okay.
Before they came out with flat ribs.
Okay. Last time you wore actual pants and not shorts that like were, for a while there, you had shorts you wore that were like Skilo or whatever that rapper guy's name was. Last time are you into pants now, or are you still like the shorts to the knees guy all the time?
Oh, no, shorts to the knees all the time.
Okay. Now, do you still go socks to the mid calves?
Yep.
Okay. So basically what we're getting at is your fashion hero is Tony Hawk. Is that a fair statement?
That'd be all right. We're all from that same era. So, yeah, no, that's the 90s were rocking back then, early 2000s.
Okay. Last concert you went to?
Oh, last concert I went to.
Or best concert
Pennywise.
you went to?
Pennywise.
Okay. Is that the best concert you went to?
Yeah, well, my daughter's first concert was at Pennywise, too. So, yeah, I would say so.
Okay. The last time that you wore, and maybe it's daily, it would be for me. Last time you wore your Indy 500 winner's ring.
Oh, long time.
Really?
I don't wear that. Yeah, no, I don't wear that. Nope.
Now, I'm not going to ask where it is, but do you know where it is? If you had to go right now and put it on within 30 minutes, could you do so?
Yeah, it's at my house here. It's with the baby Borg and everything else. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's cool, right? It just strikes me like if I won the Indy 500, I'm the first to admit. But then again, I love me some me. I would have a tattoo on me that says I won the Indy 500. Please ask me about it, right? How often, other than this interview, how often do you actually talk about the fact that you're an Indy 500 winner?
Not very often. No. I mean, it just depends if someone recognizes it, if someone brings something up that gets discussed here and there, but no.
I just love it, man. I'm telling you, you were right. When you won it and you said, it changes a lot of dudes, but not me, I didn't know it then, but I probably in the back of my mind thought, I'll bet in 22 years this guy's still wearing flat-brimmed hats and just chill, right? Just chill, which is cool. So what's next on the schedule? You're not coming here for the race, correct?
No. My daughter's high school graduation is on the deal next for Friday.
Very cool. All right. Well, enjoy that. Enjoy the open house or whatever comes with it. And if anybody asks, you should wear your ring to the open house for the graduation because it is race weekend. But we certainly always enjoy catching up with you, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. Buddy Rice joining me on the program.